What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Dark Truth Podcast. I'm so glad that you take some time to join me today, and welcome to part 2 of NPC humans, or the reality of NPC humans and how they affect your life and the reality that we currently reside in. So going back into part 1, going into part 2, we'll be talking about that. If you notice how people with a soul, people that have that divine spark, we often make spiritual choices that serve no financial, social, or egotistical gain to it. You pick up those books. If I'm being honest with y'all, and this is just my own personal life, I own more books than I own a pair of shoes. And I know that may seem, well, that's not really, but to some people, I mean, I've seen. And it's nothing, this is not coming from a place of being judgmental. There's not that. But if you look at what society sometimes pushes us to think that we need versus what we don't need. You know, I've seen some of my friends that have, closets full of tennis shoes, Jordans. Just tennis shoes. And hey, that may be the thing that they like, and I completely respect them for that or whatever. I like a good pair of shoes and a good pair of sneakers myself. You know, I'm not mightier than thou. But you see that there's sometimes in some of us that we choose to, there's something, like I said, that spark. The only thing that we can put a connotation to it is a fire. So we say the divine fire. You look at the mythology of Prometheus. And how he stole the fire from the gods and Mount Olympus and gave it to man. Usually that fire is knowledge. You look at the biblical narrative with Adam and Eve and how the serpent came to Eve and said that, God said that you can eat from any tree, but don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it's funny how God never wanted man to know the difference between good and evil. But then he is so strict and harsh about man knowing the difference between good and evil, or i.e. worshiping him. Because as long as you worship the cult of Yahweh, you can still technically perpetuate an act of evil objectively. Well, I won't say objectively, because sometimes evil but let's just say, for example, here in the Bible, when Moses, he tells, the Israelites and stuff like that to go into certain parts of the land of Canaan and kill everything standing. I don't want even the cows standing. Kill everything. In our minds, that's seen as a form of an act of evil. But to the Israelite God, Yahweh, that's not seen as an act of evil. Even though he says thou shalt not kill, as long as it's under his dictates, is not considered an act of evil. So sometimes evil can be very subjective, depending on what you think is, evil. But not trying to drift off, going back into the reality of the NPC and background people, backfield humans. When we see in the age of COVID-19, it just seems that people are just willingly just going along with everything that the government say. Wear a mask. Okay, we should wear a mask. Stand 6 feet apart. Okay, we should stand 6 feet apart. There's nothing in them that seems to have this sort of stop and think type thing. It's just a flight or fight. That's how they get us. The powers that be don't really attack you on any type of higher spiritual reality or level, because they know they're going to lose automatically. What they do and how they keep us controlled is by tugging at our animalistic reptilian brain of the human species. So the flight or fight, viruses, getting sick, the fear of death, things like that. So without conscious empathy or any battle or any type of inner battle between the ego and the spirit holding them back, they're more quickly and easily to succeed in worldly environments, regardless of the cost to others. We kind of see that a little bit too, where it seems like a lot of spiritual people, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if you are a spiritual person or if you feel like you have this divine spark in you, that you cannot be successful in life. But sometimes I know a lot of us do question, why does it seem like people that are just so unconscious seems to be the best at everything, so to speak, when it comes from a monetary or a financial, they seem to just attract all the goods. They seem to just attract the best life. But those of us that really contemplate things, and you look at the science behind a lot of, I guess, quote unquote, prophets taking that vow of poverty, so to speak, then some things do start to make sense. So getting into NPC and herd mentality, one of the best ways to identify non-playable characters, background humans, soulless beings, is to respond to the herd mentality and group think. Many spiritually self-aware people have the interaction with the spirit, and many times the higher spiritual faculties in us will alert one to when something within society or something within the world should not be trusted, even when it appears to be the good cause of society. There seems to be a collective hive mind in society that can be manipulated and programmed at will by higher forces, quote unquote, celebrities, politicians, etc. Background humans will often act as an extension of that hive mind, often simply repeating phrases, cliches, etc., as if a program is simply repeating what it is programmed to say. A good example is the COVID pandemic, in which many regular people, when mad at others for not wearing a quote unquote mask, will often repeat the same things, the same sayings introduced to them through the hive mind programming, as it's simply copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. I mean, honestly, let's look at the world as if it is a computer program. And the powers that be, the news media, celebrities, etc., are the programmers, and you yourself, the people in society, are the hardware, the software, the program. They're tinkering with it. Okay, make them say this or make them do that, and see how the program is going to respond. If I click on my computer responds to my so-called command because it's programmed to respond to my so-called command. My computer, if I click on another link right now, it won't question me and say, well, why are you clicking on that link? It just does it because that's what it's programmed to do. So we see the copy and paste mentality of what, and I think one thing I can say, a lot of what I got this from is from a beautiful book. I highly recommend that you guys get this book. Or if you can find it, actually, I probably will post a link to it online, because I personally feel if you're on the frequency and you understand what's going on, you need to read this book. The book is called The Stellar Man by author John Baines. I'm telling you, if you are on the frequency and you really, truly understand with a sincere heart what's going on, read this. It blew my mind. It confirmed a lot of what I was thinking when it comes to the so-called reality of NPC humans. And because it was, for me personally, trying to make sense why my peers, why people that I love and care about, when I'm trying to can get them to see something, it just seems like they can't, there's something in them they just can't accept it. They refuse to accept it. It's not, there's no other reality but what my pastor tells me. There's no other reality versus what Don Lemon on CNN tells me. There's no other reality versus what Fox News is telling me. It's just, hey, I think that is reality. So The Stellar Man by John Baines. If you're into hermetic philosophy, if you study hermetic philosophy, and even if you don't, this is a really good book to read. If you're not into hermetic philosophy, there are certain parts of the book that can give you a really good primer and a really good introduction as to what hermetic philosophy is. Because when you understand hermetic philosophy and you understand it comes from ancient Kemet, even that makes a lot more sense. Because, side note, a word on ancient Kemet, for a lot of my so-called Black conscious Afrocentric people, in my studies that I'm coming across right now, I can say that I don't think that we really understand what ancient Kemet was. And I think if we were to go back to ancient Kemet, the proud group of Black kings and queens, I think we will be faced with a very different society and a very different reality than what we are thinking it was. And I think that's like that for any society, any group of people, Black or white, whatever you are. Or whatever you consider yourself. But with that being said, when we look at the reality of NPC humans and we look at what was happening in the world today, we see that NPC humans operate and are controlled by what the author John Baines terms in his book, The Stellar Man, the collective soul. The collective soul is what dictates the majority of humanity's actions, or a more layman or name for it would be the hive mind. So the collective soul is pretty much the hive mind. It is the archonic powers work to feed off humanity. In essence, NPC humans remain unaware that there actually are a food source for powers that are higher on the evolutionary scale of the universe.